One of the hardest concepts for people coming back from injury, chronic pain, poor posture, or honestly just lifting in general is how to progress their weights. Most people fall into one of two camps. The first is they add 10 pounds every week. They're balls to the wall lifter who just rushes progress and ends up hurt. And then the second camp is the timid lifter who's sandbagging lifts, undershooting, and obsessing over their form at the expense of actually getting stronger and seeing progress. Both approaches can derail your progress, and you either end up in pain or you stall out, lose motivation, and at its worst, program hop. This was a major concern for my client Rachel, as well as something that I've dealt with personally for a lot of years when I first started lifting, as well as even recently, as close as like 2017 to 2020. But at the end of her 3 months of training and after seeing a ton of progress, she asked me, how do I know if the weight I'm lifting is right for me? When my muscles can handle it, but my stabilizers and joints can't, I'm a bit concerned about this. So here's the exact framework I used with her, as well as my other clients, to keep them progressing consistently and without falling back into pain, compensation, or any of the negative side effects that can happen with lifting. So the first point here is that we need to see progress as we go. We don't want to be in the second camp and sandbagging everything and obsessed with our form, because at the end of the day, that's just not a fun way to lift. So what I like to tell people is we need to have a sort of 80-20 rule. So with this, 80% of the time, you should move clean, right? You should have good mechanics, minimize the compensations, just really good form overall. Then the other 20% is where you're pushing your limits. You're trying to, get stronger, cultivate that new strength level that unfortunately is just, I won't say unfortunately, but it's just not a clean process, right? I like to think of this as like digging out the foundation of a house, right? For you to have that stable foundation, you have to get dirty. You have to dig this out, get in the mud, right? It's not going to be a clean process. So don't be afraid to get dirty 20% of the time, because that's going to allow for you to have a much better foundation. So in practice, here's sort of the difference. If your form breaks down on rep 1, that weight is far too heavy. We've all probably experienced that. You grab the weight and then your range of motion is significantly shorter, like 25, 50% less than what you normally would do. Or say you're lifting dumbbells and one side is going up faster than the other side. That weight is way too heavy, especially on the first set. But if you're experiencing those things on the end of the set, right? Or toward the third set, that is completely normal and that is 100% allowed. So from a 3 sets of 10, I think the first 2 sets are golden. They are locked in really good form. And then we'll say on the last set of 10, anything after rep 5 through 10 is allowed to have some little bits of compensation. Those are your best reps all the time. And they're going to be what actually gets you to make more progress the next week. And it's just really important to notice what the difference is between these things. And that's what's going to help keep you progressing and protecting your joints at the end of the day. The next thing I told her is to utilize something known as like a top set and then some back off sets. This comes from Steve Shaw's sort of rep scheme model of progression, someone that I highly suggest following. And I find that this works really, really well for those with chronic pain or that just have a lot of mobility, hypermobility, and can't quite control their body as well as they would like. So what this looks like is you have, say, 3 sets of 10 that you're trying to complete. The first set you're doing is going to be your top set. It's going to be much heavier than the second and third set, which are your working or your back off sets. That top set, because it's heavier, you're going to be able to be fresh and put a lot of energy into that and truly test yourself. This is, again, you're digging out that foundation with that top set, and you might have a little bit of compensation because it's heavier, right? But you have a ton of energy for this top set because it's first up on what you're doing. So because of that, you can minimize or mitigate some of the compensations that might happen. And those compensations, again, over time, may just kind of load the same areas and give you some of those aches and pains that we don't want. But then after you do that and you have all that energy, you then come down to a weight that you know you can control for the back off sets or the working sets. Take off about 10% of this from what was on the top set. So say the first set was 100, you're then going to take off 10%, that's about 10 pounds. So then you're going to do 90 pounds for the second and third set. Because this is lighter, it should be much more clean and controlled, and it will minimize any compensations that you're using, especially since you're a little bit fatigued from the top set. This allows for you to build that strength with the top set, but it also reinforces really good movement and just mechanics with the back off work that you know you can control because you've already probably lifted that weight before. Another way to look at this, and again, this is from Steve Shaw's work, is just overall rep progressions. So instead of trying to add weight each and every week you go into the gym, talking to you first camp, instead we want to focus on progressing our reps. Give yourself a rep range to work with, say 8 to 10 or 6 to 8. You're then going to complete all 3 sets of an exercise for that rep scheme, but you only add weight when you can complete the top end of the reps. So for example, this would look like 100 pounds for week 1 for 6 reps. You didn't complete the 8, so you're gonna stay there. The second week, you then go in and you do 100 pounds for 8 reps. Now you've earned your right to bump this up to 105 pounds. This may slow things down substantially for you, but it forces you to really lock in your form. It makes the progression scheme a lot more beneficial from a connective tissue standpoint because you're not just bumping up weight and making weird micro adjustments to your form to push heavier weight. You're actually allowing your body to really just make progress and adaptations to the weight you're currently using. You're getting more out of the weight that you're using. And with that, you're going to make longer term changes to toughening up your connective tissue, toughening up your muscles, bigger muscles in the long run versus just jumping to weights that you may have previously used or whatever, your ego is telling you that day. So really utilize more of a rep progression standpoint. I know it doesn't give you the same hit of dopamine as adding 10 pounds each week, but it definitely will set you up for more consistent gains over the long term. So in closing, here's the way to really know if the weight is right for you. 1, form breaks down on rep 1 or the first set of an exercise, that's way too heavy. Form breaks down at the end, that's completely normal. Third set, right? Anything after 5 to 10 reps, completely normal. You're gonna use top sets and back off sets to help kind of balance out like when you need to push, but also when you need to be a bit more controlled. And lastly, just remember that adding reps is just as powerful as adding weight to the exercises that you're using. And keep in mind that consistent progress is the real goal here. Pain and injury are actually the fastest way to derail that. So whatever we have to do to keep you strong, keep you moving, and keep you consistent, that is the goal. Don't make huge jumps in your programming because it's really not going to serve you. And again, you're not even going to get what you want out of that exercise. You're probably just making small tweaks to your form that don't actually make you stronger or develop the musculature. So don't just load the bar heavier. Lift weights that keep you moving forward for years, not just weeks. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Share this with a friend that you think this will help, and I will see you guys in the next one.